but I was scared of her telling my friends about my lies. I had no reason to lie about my friends, and I felt like they would be upset by it, and so that scared me. And that put me fully in panic mode.
Hello, it's me again. First things first, yes, I am drawing Creepshow Art. I drew some fan art some time ago, but I kind of never finished it. I was looking at it as this drama was going down, so I had the brilliant idea of fixing my own art and turning it into something that's more fitting for the occasion. So I'ma keep the intro short and sweet, but I just wanted to thank y'all for finally reaching 1k. My first video on Shannon and the whole lolcow debacle was really well received and did really well, so of course I'm really happy about that. It means a lot because I worked really hard to push it out, at the same time as it was time sensitive. People lose interest very quickly online, and only after a few days they're looking for something new to sink their teeth into. But first, this video will contain sensitive subjects such as stalking, SA, transphobia, drugs, EDs, CP and slurs. Of course, none of this is fun to hear and most certainly uncomfortable no matter who you are. But if any of this might trigger you, then do yourself and I a favor and watch something else. I also want to clarify that a lot of this is alleged, though the evidence is pretty damning. As you probably know, if you followed this whole thing, there's new information. With Emily Artful coming out with a video detailing the years of harassment she was put through at the hands of Shannon and her husband. Allegedly, I don't want to get in trouble. If you haven't already, then I'd suggest you go watch that if you want to know the whole story. She has receipts and all of that to back it up, unlike Shannon. Right off the bat, I want to make this clear that this isn't going to be just a retelling of what Emily has gone through. What I have done, however, is combed through Creepshow's old storytimes and such to puzzle some things together. While making my first video, I left out a few things because if I didn't, I could go on for hours. But watching Emily's video, I sort of had a revelation, and a lot of things that Shannon had said that previously kinda bothered me were finally put into context. What made Shannon so easy to trust is that she often appeared to take accountability. The key word here is appeared. If you've watched her content, then you'd know how often she would self-deprecate. She would tell you embarrassing stories about her and how she's done some shitty things in the past. At the same time as you can look back at it and wonder how anyone could ever support anyone that is so openly such a shitty person. But I would say that's the reason why it was so easy to trust her and thought we knew her better than we actually did. It would be a lie for anyone to say that they hadn't done something they're not proud of. Sometimes we do shitty things, we're only human after all. Shannon appeared to be wearing all of her mistakes on her sleeve, when in reality her faults were a little bit more sinister than a couple of innocent lies, anger issues and a foul mouth. Assuming you're already caught up with my first video, if not, then go watch that. Pause this video and go watch it. We're waiting. Done? Okay, good. Then you would know that Shannon isn't the #woke babe that's a little bit feisty due to the world always being against her. She's not that bitch that everyone hates simply because she's not afraid to tell the truth. She was lying when she said,
"But I'm a loyal ass bitch. And I'm also a down ass bitch."
We thought she was like uber progressive. It wasn't a secret that she supported gay people, trans people, sex workers, people of color, rape victims, and women. Did I mention that she likes women? Well, she does. She takes every opportunity to bring up that she was bi before she changed things up and labeled herself pansexual, which is cool. We evolve as people and find different labels. Not at all saying that she isn't pansexual, but it's just odd to then have her go and call pansexual just woke bisexuals, and it's the whole there's only two genders thing, but whatever. She was probably trying to be discriminatory as to turn herself into the victim, but whether she meant what she said or is just perpetuating the hatred that is so often thrown at our community doesn't matter. Pansexuals and bisexuals go through enough discrimination from the cisheads and their own community, so you don't have to add that for pity points. I'm not bringing this up because I don't legitimately think she's part of the LGBTQ plus community. I don't want any ew men likers or but she's married to a man or she's bringing it up for woke points. Don't speculate about anyone else's identity or sexuality. You can't know if someone is 50% attracted to the same gender, 25% attracted, or even 1%. It doesn't matter anyways, and it doesn't make anyone less bisexual. I don't want any bi or pan people to feel as if they're not allowed to express their sexuality unless it's strictly feelings of same-sex attraction. I don't want them to feel as if they're not welcome in LGBTQ plus spaces, whether they're in a monogamous opposite-sex relationship. I'm bi and I want other bi and pan people to be loud and proud about it no matter their relationship status or preference, just like Shannon was. But being part of the community yourself doesn't absolve you of any bigotry. A lot of us felt safe and seen watching her, so to find out that she not only is comfortable insinuating that one of her close friends is closeted gay and is in a long distance relationship because then he only has to pretend to like women at most 1 month of the year, when she most definitely knows it's wrong and use the F slur and the T slur is very disheartening. As come to find out watching Emily Artful's video, Shannon isn't exactly a stranger to this kind of language.
People are commenting that I guess Shannon had made a lot of transphobic comments. Let me just say right now, the #1 insult, this is how I know it's her across the board, because, you know, everybody is haters, but I know it's her when I'm called pre-op or TRANNY slur, or when did you get your operation, and do you still have, you know, boy parts down there? Just lots of incredibly transphobic insults.
Hey, Shannon, come here. I just want to talk. No, I just want a bit of a chat, don't worry. Come sit down here next to me. What do you mean by mockingly asking someone if they're pre-op? What's up with that? Are you perhaps insinuating that our bodies are disgusting and something that we should be ashamed of? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I thought so. Release the hounds! I often have people assume that I as a trans person is safe around cis, gay, lesbian, bi and pan people because we're all marginalized and allies and it's all perfect, rainbows, leather and Lady Gaga, am I right? Well, it's not the case at all. I've had enough bad experiences with gay cis people telling me that they would never ever date a trans person, and it should be close to criminal to assume that not every gay person only wants the ding dong, so why would a trans man feel comfortable approaching a gay guy? This was before I had come out, so no, I just instinctively exclude myself from most dating pools unless I have reason to believe that someone could potentially find me desirable, which is rare because people are too damn comfortable expressing their transphobia. So to me, it's just another instance of someone who's supposed to be my ally saying the most vile things when they think no one will find out. Take it from Ian McKellen, better known as Gandalf. He said, "I do hear people, gay people, talk about transgender people in very much the same terms as people used to talk about your common or garden gay. If no one else has my back, I know Gandalf will." As I mentioned in my previous video, I've always had an iffy feeling about Creepshow. She presented herself as very progressive, and though it's no secret that a lot of activism is very performative, what bothered me ran even deeper. It was an unwillingness to unpack and examine all harmful expectations that influence how others and women themselves perceive their body. But you can't just outright state that. Instead, she would repackage this with a little cute girl boss label on top. If you've seen her art, you know it's often pandering to the male gaze. Not the gaze as in homosexual, but the gaze. However, as Shannon points out herself, it's not only men that gets pleasure out of gazing upon boobas, bubble butts, thick thighs, and an overall hourglass shape. She herself quite enjoys looking at those types of body, so that's why she draws it. I myself quite enjoy those bodies too. I too like me a good pair of boobs, just not on me, if you know what I mean. God, I'm desperate for top surgery. But I still recognize that a lot, if not most of my preferences are socially influenced, and in today's day and age with Photoshop and filters, a lot of it is catering to the male gaze. The beauty expectations are quite ridiculous, like, bro, she needs her ribs, dude. Does that mean I just disable my preferences even though I know not everyone looks like that, and it can be damaging to everyone's mental health? Absolutely no one is safe. Men, women, non-binaries, you're not immune to society's expectations. But no. What I'm not gonna do, however, is make multiple videos defending something that is very obviously catering to the male gaze, completely unprompted. All while shitting out some sex-positive message in an attempt to hide that I'm really just a massive pick-me girl. Boy, just say you like boobs and move on. It's okay, no one will judge you.
And I'm not disrespecting women when I draw like that, because how I draw women who aren't real, that don't fucking exist, has nothing to do with how I see women in my real life. Absolutely nothing. So this insane energy that men are sick bastards for drawing women this way, for drawing them with unreal proportions and in ways that can be deemed sexual, that is insane. In-friggin' sane.
I'm not saying that I think men or anyone is a sick bastard for drawing hot women, cause it's obviously not what it's about. She's blowing it out of proportion so that there's actually something she can make an argument against, and she does this quite often actually. Please use critical thinking, Shannon.
All of these characters, everyone, including Tinkerbell, are characters who have flaws, who have thoughts, who have feelings, are an actual character. But like every single human being can be, also are sexual beings. They are fictional women who, just like fictional men, have the ability to feel horny and want to go to Pound Town. And drawing them in that way, drawing a character who wants to be seen in that way, is not illegal or problematic in the slightest. And pretending that women don't want to feel like that or don't want to dress like that for themselves is dumb. In fact, you know what is goddamn problematic? When fucking other women look down on another woman for choosing to portray themselves in whatever way they desire, or in a sexual way, and then go on to say that a woman deciding to use her own sexual power is gross and makes her bad. Like, that woman's not okay because she wants to dress sexy.
Does she know that Tinkerbell is from a children's movie? Does she understand that Tinkerbell isn't real and she isn't hitting the club dressed a little provocative in the hopes of getting some actions? Is anyone gonna tell her that these characters are designed by other humans for the explicit purpose of entertaining an audience? I'm not saying that no one looks like Tinkerbell or that it's bad. All I'm saying is that it would be nice if female bodies in media were more diverse. But you do you. As you probably already know, this is nothing in comparison to what we have learned about Shannon through Emily Artful's video titled Creepshow Art Has Always Been This Way, where she details the harassment campaign she went through at the hands of her ex-boyfriend Anthony Parker, Shannon's current husband. It's also believed that Shannon herself was an accomplice and she soon seemed to take an active part in the torment of Emily. But the evidence for that is not as strong. I mean, we had a... Oh, fuck. There was a former friend of Shannon that just came out and described that Shannon often talked about harassing Emily. I'll probably link that thread in the description. If not, remind me in the comments. However, Emily came with the receipts. The screenshots going years back, to which I'd like to point out she first started saving after her lawyer advised her to. I want to make this clear, this is not tea, this is not drama. This was around 10 years of this woman's life. She didn't save them with the intent of releasing it, she just wanted justice and to finally be safe. I really do hope that this is the end of it and that Emily can finally have the peace she deserves. It's a long story, her video being over 2 hours, because it happened over the span of 10 years. I really urge you to go watch her video if you haven't already. If you really can't sit through 2 hours, there's condensed versions of the story by Kai Weiss and Vangelina Skov, so you can get the gist of it. Though there's a few instances I want to add my 2 cents to, or just simply highlight because of how absolutely vile this is. So, how do these people, Emily, Anthony and Shannon, know each other? They met way back in the day, before even YouTube. Side note, isn't that like really crazy? Hearing Emily's side of the story felt like finally finding out about a villain's origin story. The villain being Shannon. Where was she before she was making so less content on YouTube? What motivates her to relentlessly bully people? Has she always been like this? Going by Emily's story, the answer is yes. She's always gotten off on terrorizing other people, whether it be on a public platform or in private. Before we go any further, I also want to remind you that the seemingly main culprit is her husband. He did some absolutely horrendous things that he quite frankly should go to jail for, straight up. Creepshow was kinda roped into it, but soon was like, oh, I'm really feeling this. Let's fucking go, baby! Boom, boom, boom! And it appears as if she slowly started running the show. Shannon really said, I'ma create an environment that is so toxic. And then she did. Emily's own theory is that Creepshit Fart's grudge stems from that one time years ago where Anthony showed her a song or something, I don't know, I don't understand music, where Shanana was doing backup singing and Emily, admittedly being a pick-me girl at the time, which isn't a crime, went, that's some weak shit, I can do better. Please put a pin in that because I think I've connected some dots between this and Shannon's own story time about her own stalker. Anyways, is that a shit thing to say? Absolutely. Is it unforgivable? Absolutely not. It's not a crime to be a bit of a dick. I used to be a massive dick, and I'm still a massive dick at times. If that minor petty comment stuck with you for all of these years, and you spend this much time and energy into making the person's life into a living hell, then you need a hobby. Go outside, touch grass. This is too much. Not only did Anthony and presumably Shannon make tons of sock puppet accounts just to harass Emily online, but they also fished her Facebook account she had since she was a minor and locked her out of it. Emily knows it's probably them because she got one of them emails informing her about the location of the unfamiliar login, which just so happens to be where her abusive ex resided at the time. One hell of a coinky doink, innit? Your Facebook is something that is so personal. Emily, like a lot of others, have sensitive information and images that are meant to be private, which Anthony and Shannon now had access to. A lot of compromising photos, which is nothing to be ashamed of because that's something so natural that most people don't talk about openly. Doesn't make it okay to spread them. Some of those compromising photos depicts Emily as a minor. She was 15 in those pictures, which she informed her stalker of. Because mind you, at the time she didn't know who was behind this in an attempt to gain back access to her Facebook, which was unfortunately unsuccessful. I don't know if you know this, but that's CP, sir. You're blackmailing someone with CP. Isn't that so ironic considering who his current wife is? Mrs. Creepshow, there's minor attracted people on Twitter, Art. Mrs. Wannabe girl boss Chris Hansen, but even worse somehow. But that's only an act so she can look like the good guy. Everything that has come out about her goes against everything she had been preaching for the past couple of years. Not only did they drug shame her, which again there's nothing to be ashamed of, and I'm happy that Emily has recovered and seems to be doing amazing, but they also body shamed her, knowing she has a past with EDs. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you might know that I was diagnosed with Anna around 10, so this hits close to home. It's despicable behavior, especially since Shannon herself has talked about her past with disordered eating, and although she might have a tendency to adopt her own victim's story, please don't speculate about whether she lied about her ED. It doesn't change much anyways. More people than you know suffer from them, and they're not always visible. What is heinous, however, is that she would either participate or at the very least co-sign these kinds of comments when she herself would have a better understanding of what a relapse would infer. It's also unlikely that she was unaware that this was happening, seeing as they've stated that the two of them shared a phone when they were homeless. Speaking of being homeless, it's something Shannon has made very public, and as Emily proved using a video clip from Anthony's own YouTube video, it was a choice they made to save money. You can argue about whether that's actually being homeless. I don't know if there should be any gatekeeping of the homeless community. Y'all can beef it out in the comments. What I can say, however, is that it's a bit different than being homeless against your own will. Because they seemingly had options, and maybe none of those options were good, but the vibe of her openly talking about her status as a formerly homeless person completely changes when you learn that she and her husband managed to make Emily homeless by sending compromising pictures of her to her place of employment, all while posing as customers, which managed to get her fired. That is not the same as we choose to live out of our car to focus on making music while getting expensive equipment. That is shown in Anthony's own YouTube video. That is the I'm barely surviving kind of homelessness. Every time she managed to get back on her feet or anything good happened, they were desperate to take that away, and when she later was employed, they even went as far as posing as another friend of hers on Facebook to try and find her place of work, so they probably could try and get her fired again. Fortunately enough, Emily was on her guard, but it just shows just how manipulative and calculating they were, and they must have spent a shitload of time and energy just to ruin her life. And you already know that Shannon tried to get Emily's child taken away from her by accusing her of being a bad mother, accusations that were very loosely based in reality. For example, Emily made a short and cute series with her baby on her channel for Halloween where they pretended that he was possessed by Satan or something. I haven't watched it, but I'm 99.9% sure that it was just goofing around. They didn't do any stunts, like, come on, it's just really cute and children love that stuff. However, Shannon ran with this and was alleging that she was exploiting her child and stuff. This was just the most horrible thing you could do, which is funny seeing as Shannon has made several videos, I think, where she talks about child exploitation online, including family channels, so she would know that this is nothing in comparison. It was a one-time thing. It's cute, she's not airing out the more personal moments or showing her kid in a vulnerable state. He's not gonna grow up wondering what's real and what's for the camera, because once again this was a one-time thing. Besides, she would have probably made more money and views if it was her regular content, because it's not what people subscribed for. It's clearly and obviously for her own sake. She did say more to make her out to be a bad mother, and a lot of it you can find on lolcow. Once again, if you want to know more, I really suggest you watch the entirety of Emily's video, link in description. In the video, she also described how Anthony was more threatening, not to say Shannon wasn't, but she was more catty with her insults. It was very obvious that he's someone Emily was genuinely scared of. It was more than just mean comments online. He went to the extent of messaging her on Snapchat with pictures, making it seem that he was in her city. In an ominous conversation, she shows the screenshots of to back it up, and that must have been terrifying. Not only after years of harassment online must he have gotten into her head, but even before she was scared of him, since he was a terrifying man. He would punch holes through the walls out of anger. He and his friend Brandon would talk about how they want to shoot up their old school in detail. She had a lot of reasons to be scared of him and believe that hurting her is something he would be capable of doing. The worst thing I think he did was allegedly R-wording her one time when she was incredibly and obviously on heroin. I say allegedly, but personally I believe her, seeing all the evidence of the horrible stuff he's capable of. This is just why I would say he's the worst scum out of him and Shannon. Not that it's a competition. Unfortunately, he isn't getting nearly the same amount of backlash as his wife from the community, and that is mostly because we don't know much about him, cause he didn't have a big platform like Shannon. I looked for his YouTube channel because I wanted to take a look at the content myself, but I didn't find it. What I can say is that he's a cringy little emo boy who thinks he's some sort of outcast and no one gets him because he's just so smart, he's so deep and talented. Bro, you're like the biggest goofball, and if I had your Twitter handle, I would clown on you so hard, you're never gonna recover.
Welcome to the fucking circus, baby.
Although I've been trying to keep Shannon's sibling out of this as much as possible, I feel inclined to share this snippet of information. You probably already know that Shannon has some weird vendetta against them and has made posts on Reddit, lolcow and even YouTube videos talking about what a bad person they are, often describing them as an extreme SJW with every feminist bad trope you can imagine. Well, I've always been skeptical hearing about it because from what I've seen, people often deliberately misinterpret what the SJWs say as to discredit them. In a story time called "He Abused Me, SJW versus My Relationship Story Time," which just so happens to be deleted now, she describes how she and her current husband had a very back and forth relationship, but like, don't worry, it was like the normal kind of disagreements, except that they both had anger issues. The main character of the story was a friend that now is believed to be her sibling because of how perfectly everything lines up. Her sibling was this extreme SJW that just hates all men because that's what feminism is. They would tell her that Anthony is a bad person, blah blah blah, essentially trying to get her to leave him. According to Shannon, it was because they were a feminist weirdo that just hated that she was in a relationship with a man because all men are pigs, oink oink. When they did break up one time, because they were on and off, her sibling began comforting her, telling her that he was a bad person anyways. Knowing what I know now, I can even more confidently say that she isn't telling the entire story and is pandering to the edgy anti-SJW 15-year-olds. If I'm to guess, her sibling has valid concerns, seeing as Shannon was dating an artist that would talk about killing people. Maybe they weren't as unreasonable as she made him out to be, and the reason they disapproved of him wasn't because he was a man, but because he was genuinely just a terrible person. I truly do feel terrible for them because Shannon is just bashing them online and publicly, and even went as far as to dox them and send people their way to hate on them for being a feminist, I guess. Also, I think I used sister for them in my previous video. However, as you've probably noticed, I've used they, them, because that's a pronoun that was in their bio when I checked them out after Shannon doxed them. They turned public for a day to answer questions, and in their post they referred to them as sibling, so I'd assume that's their preference. Before, I only had Shannon's word to go by, and not only did she use the wrong pronoun, but she also called them her sister. Like, come on, that's just blatantly misgendering. Woo! Emily's own theory is that Shannon's story about her stalker is so similar to her own story is so that if Emily comes forth, Shannon can just pull a Scooby-Doo switcheroo and accuse her of being the actual liar. And that's just why she chose the name Amy for her stalker, because it's so similar to... I wrote Amy, but I mean Emily. Because it's so similar to Emily, but that's just a theory. A game theory. Being the good little YouTube boy I am, I did my research and watched the 2 videos about Amy by Creepshow, and let me tell you, she ain't got nothing on Emily. No evidence, no nothing, not even a crumb to prove that this person even existed in the first place. The first video was called I Was Catfished Storytime, which was uploaded in July of 2018. In it, she explained... It's so fucking hot in here, and it's not me. In it, she explains that she met Amy through Stardoll, and I'm only telling you this because I find it funny that Amy supposedly managed to catfish Shannon by posing as a boy with the username Sasuke Uchiha 666. Like, come on, it's a pretty grim situation. So can we at the very least appreciate the cringiness of the Stardoll boy Sasuke Uchiha 666? Anyways, stuff happens. He's the love of her life, he dumps her, and she makes a really long post about how she hates him so everyone would know because she's really dramatic. Years later, Amy finds her on MySpace confessing to catfishing her by going, "Lol bitch, that was me." And they were besties after that because Amy had the biggest and juiciest balls or something. That's until January of 2019, 6 months later when she dropped her infamous I Was Stalked for 8+ years story time, where we find out that we hadn't heard last of Amy. They were besties, blah 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 blah, talked about boy stuff all the time, prepubescent stuff. Amy was living the scene core dream with tons of boys liking her, and Shannon felt inclined to lie to Amy, like she always does, to make her own life seem just as exciting. Remember when I told you to put a pin in how Emily put her down and wronged her? Yeah, I'm making a connection now, baby. Call me Sherlock Holmes. She started lying about boys being interested in her. She made up this good boy character called George after George Weasley and this bad boy named Garrett, specifically because it was the most American name that somewhat resembled Gaara from Naruto. She spiced things up by starring her real life friends in her made up stories, where one of her actual friends was trying to get a piece of Garrett or George, I don't know, I don't care. And even though she wasn't in a relationship with either of them, not even in her made up stories, like, if you're gonna lie, why aren't you committing to it? Take it from Trisha Paytas and say you dated an entire football team. Anyways, this was the worst thing anyone could ever do, according to Amy, who found the girl from her real life and started sending actual threats, which eventually led Shannon to confess to Amy about how she lied to her and then blocked her, told everyone that Amy was absolutely crazy and to ignore anything she had to say if they're contacted by her. After that, she started getting really mean emails, with a lot of it being very similar to what was sent to Emily. I'm not gonna put my audience through a retelling of everything. It's not important. However, by the end of it, when she finally put the pieces together and realized who had been stalking her and making her fear for her life, she was like, oh my god, I'm not actually innocent. The reason this woman has been stalking me and harassing me for all of these years is because I lied to her and hurt her. I started all of this. So she contacted her and sent her an apology, which landed them in a call where Amy broke down, confessed, and said she had thought Shannon didn't see her mails since she never responded, and it was all a way of blowing off steam and she didn't actually mean anything by it. First off, that's what journals are used for. Secondly, in the very same video, Shannon described how Amy would make new accounts and go out of her way to make the insults and threats personal, and even stalking her to make it seem as if she knew her in real life. Like, that's a little more than just venting and blowing off steam, especially when it goes on for years. But whatever, whatever, it was all good and dandy according to Shannon. So maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me, her putting emphasis on how she did something to cause this kinda tells me that she thinks Emily caused this by being a pick-me girl and insulting her backup singing. I don't know if that makes sense or if I sound like some crazy conspiracy theorist, but this entire situation is rather crazy and the most elaborate plan to make someone miserable. Since a lot of her story lines up with what they put Emily through, it sounds to me that she's saying that Emily brought this harassment upon herself when the moral of her story was, oh my god, I was a dick to Amy and I needed to apologize. Am I crazy? I think I need to touch grass.
Reminder that this is not facts, it's just my theory. Don't mind it, don't run with it. It's just, fuck, I don't know, I'm stupid.
And by the way, of course nothing Emily could have said or done would warrant this. This isn't healthy. I don't think there's anything anyone could do that would make this a reasonable reaction, because it's so time consuming. Also, my favorite part was when Shannon mentioned that she had triggered Amy's PTSD by being a dick on MySpace all those years ago, and that's why she did all of this. Then she goes on to say, when I say triggered, I don't mean social justice trigger, I mean actual trigger. Thank you for clarifying, Shannon. Thank you for letting us know that she's not one of those with PTSD. She has actual PTSD. Valid bean, uwu. By the way, I'm by no means an expert, and this might be a little bit far-fetched, but I don't think that being triggered makes you continuously stalk someone for years. Anyways, in conclusion, Shannon is most definitely two-faced. She has hurt a lot of people. I truly feel for her friends. I've been in a similar situation with me being played by a friend, thinking I was closer to them when in reality they weren't the person I thought they were. It hurts. I hope they can heal from this. It's no secret she would love bomb people, which is a tactic abusive people use to rope others in. In Ready to Glass video, she explained that only days before the news broke, Shannon sent roses to her house. This sort of experience makes you extremely wary of the people you let into your life, and you start questioning if someone's love and affection is genuine because of your previous experience with someone you truly thought was just the most loving person, when in reality they only had you wrapped around their finger. Like I said in the beginning, she knew how to relate to others because she always seemed to have gone through exactly the same thing as the people she preyed upon. She would insert herself into situations by making what I can only assume to be sock puppet accounts, so she could also be in the spotlight. I'm sorry, I excluded this from my previous video because I didn't want it to be too long, but in the video addressing the hate surrounding Corp's husband, she was like reading out mails she allegedly got attacking Corpse and saying that she was bad for associating with him, and I just found it so funny because even though I know there's some wacky people that do wacky stuff here online, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but at the time of watching that I thought, Wow, how come she gets all this weird ass mail when she isn't that close to him? It's almost something someone would send to themselves. And knowing what I know now, after Emily Awful came out with her video, I personally believe she made those emails. Cause I don't think she even showed them, probably cause she couldn't even be asked to make them. I think she did it so she could be like, oh my god, why does everyone hate Corpse? Don't worry, Corpse, I'll protect you. Corpse is so cool, guys. Why would you, she herself, say something like that? Please notice me, Corpse. Please notice me. Calm down, Shannon. I know your ego was inflated after you got to play Among Us with him and just had to brag about it on LOLcow, but this is kind of embarrassing. In summary, Shannon sucks. Anthony Parker, remember that name. Anthony Parker is a vile man who probably belongs in prison. Subscribe to me. I'll be your new art commentary god, I guess. I should have 1 million subscribers, man. Follow me on Twitter at Muggen Mylle, link in description. Comment and like for the engagement. Drink water, take care, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!